Yeah, so I have this in my mind to talk about violence. I want to talk about violence. Sometimes we always attribute violence to physical, but do we know we also have violence by words of mouth, mental violence, when people abuse you, insult you, say all kinds of things about you or to you, talk you down, you get they tear you down with words of mouth. Do you know that that one too is another form of violence that we don't talk about all the time? And the reason why I'm even talking about this is because we have the society at large. We've always spoken about violence, and you hear people talk about gender-based violence.
Love no be by slap oh.
If she no be waka pass,
Woman no be punching bag oh. Say no to gender-based violence.
And then when you talk about gender-based violence, they only attribute it to the gender of the female gender. That okay, men are violent towards them physically, and so that is desensitized. That's where the sensitization is coming from. Like okay, stop being violent against women. But nobody talks about the violence of words of mouth. Now, by study and sociologically, psychologically, a man's way of venting out his anger is by strength. A woman's way of venting her anger is by words of mouth, and that is so because we are created differently. That is why in an argument with a woman, you can as a man you can't win her in arguments because she has been gifted with the words of mouth that she can talk more than you. Even scientifically, they say women speak more than men, right? Yes. So you can imagine that that is her strength. A man is your own strength is physical. Her own is by words of mouth. Not to say that women don't go violent too. Sometimes even some of this violence that we're talking about are initiated or instigated by women, and you know that you're not as strong as the man, but yet you instigate the violence, and then you now because now start to act like the victim. Okay, but that's not the point. The point is that we must understand that in as much as we are talking about the violence by men, that men should learn self-control. Also, women should learn self-control when it comes to words of mouth, how you speak, because now how you speak is your strength. Women's mouth and words is her strength. The man's strength is in his muscles, right? So that is how a man shows his anger. So when two people are now angry, a man and a woman are angry, the woman's way of fighting her man is by telling him things that will make him more angry and more sad. I would bring him down. In fact, we have seen where women have talked down their men, tear them down to such extent that they've given up on even their families and giving up on life generally. Some men will not even want to do anything because after do you know how important your wife is to you, and for her to tear you down in such manner, talk to you in such manner, it can lead to psychological breakdown. And in fact, it is even better to treat physical injury than to treat a psychological injury. So please, as we preach about men being violent physically and for them to learn self-control, let's also talk to the women to learn self-control too. It's important. Learn how you speak because your words is your strength. Your words is your strength. That's why women who know how to control their words, they find good men easily. They find men. Those men live with them peacefully. So, but women who misuse their strength are violent women. In fact, when you see a man wants to, if a man wants to marry, it's the way the woman talks that he knows whether she's a violent woman or not. It's not by because she has beaten you. No, you can tell a violent woman by the way she speaks, the manner how she speaks, her words, choice of words. You can tell that she's a violent woman. So please, gender-based violence should be balanced. Whenever I hear gender-based violence, let's also talk about women that use abusive words on people or on their men, because that can alone can trigger a man, because he would. And now imagine you have done your own violence, and then he's now trying to commensurate your violence with his own violence, because how he knows how to be violent is by strength. So if you are violent by words and he reacts by being violent with strength, you should not go about saying that that is gender-based violence, that is violence. No, it is balanced. So if you on your own you have self-control and then your man does not have self-control, like you have self-control with your words and your man does not have self-control with his words, that is when we now say there's violence from one side. But when the violence is from the both side, please let us treat it as violence from both sides. Words hurt even more than punches. Thank you.